We are infinite consciousness. We're part of that ever expanding opulence of pure source consciousness, the eternal spirit of God within, as us, a part of us, or as an aspect or child of God. Abundance is our natural state of being. So abundance is that infinite nature of source, ever expanding, and part of that is abundance. So if we are an aspect of that, then abundance is our birthright. And we see the truth of abundance everywhere in nature, on a crack in the road or a pavement where plants grow through seemingly and just from dirt off the road. But to truly see abundance in nature, go out into nature and see the never-ending bounty of it. Now, I remember as a child growing up in Edinburgh, and I used to often visit the Botanic Gardens. And it's not there anymore, but there used to be a science hall on botany. And the gardeners or the scientists there had done an experiment where they took a box of soil, completely sterilized it, and put it outside the window of this science hall and just left it to its own devices. And in a few weeks' time, you could see little seedlings coming up. In a few months' time, that box was overgrowing with plants that had just seemingly come from nowhere and took root in that sterile soil with no help from anything other than nature. That fascinated me as a child, and it still fascinates me today. So to repeat this, abundance is who and what we truly are. Nature doesn't have to feel worthy or deserving of abundance or work at abundance. It just is. But of course, we as humans have so much trouble tapping into this. Now, by abundance, I'm not just talking about financial wealth. Abundance is everything. It's our relationships in life, it's our health, our well-being, our immediate environment, how we go or flow through life, and of course, finances. Now, virtually, there are probably a few people in the world who have abundance everywhere, in every area of their life. And they're usually people that have worked towards this, but most of the rest of us have some kind of lack issue in one or more areas of our life. And this is a gross distortion of nature. Some form of lack or scarcity affects virtually everyone. And again, this is one of the limitations we agree to as part of incarnating here. But I believe that this particular one, and the other ones to a certain extent, but this one of lack, because it's such a fundamental cause of misery in the world, some kind of lack, whether it's poor health, lack of finances, poor relationships, it causes so much misery. And I think it's gone far beyond where it was ever meant to go in its brutal disconnection from source consciousness and the varying levels of, as I say, misery that so many live with. It's a level of corruption, depravity, greed, and control that's ensnared and enslaved humanity for far too long. And I'm here to tell you that the energies, the codes that have kept this in place have gone. They're dissolved. And we no longer need to live this. However, we're almost living under a hypnotic program of constantly thinking we still have to be in lack. Not consciously, of course, but it's there, an underlying basic programming that it's time to fully overcome. Of course, it's always been possible to fully overcome this, but it is actually easier now, despite what you see in the world. Now, obviously it's been everywhere, but one of the places that's not so obvious is in the spiritual and religious communities, which preach the nature of abundance through nature, especially in the New Age spiritual communities, where you've had things like the law of attraction and the secret for so long. The problem with a lot of these programs is that they almost promote lack because they're coming from a place of need or lack in the first place. And it's difficult to find the right language to go into this. But again, difficult to go into the right language to use language to promote abundance. Really, abundance is a feeling state, it's a frequency. So I'll try my best in this very brief introduction to lack and scarcity and how you can begin overcoming this in this video. And of course, I've also produced another mini course on overcoming lack in my mini courses series. At some point, I would like to do a full course on just being abundance when I have that more, because there's obviously still areas in my life where I lack in some way. What I have let go of, however, is the sense of struggle, the sense of misery and struggle that underpins so much lack. It's huge. It's one of the topics which I probably know in some ways more about because I've done so much work on it. So I am going to do a course on that in someday, because I have overcome so many aspects of this, because it's been one of the biggest aspects in my life, I would say. Now, I'd like to say another thing just about the New Age view of abundance, creating things, because the word manifestation is used so much, and a better word is materialization. To manifest something presupposes that we're trying to create something out of nothing. It's a bit like waving a magic wand. To materialize something presupposes that it already exists in the quantum realm, and we're allowing ourselves to receive what is already ours, or more accurately, there for all to experience, endless possibilities. It might sound like I'm talking about semantics of language, but if you fully realize this, that you can't make something out of nothing, which is in some ways what manifestation does. Instead, you're materializing from the quantum realm that is endless and infinite, and everything you've ever desired is already yours. It's a question of opening up to that frequency of where it's at, the frequency of receiving it, and just trusting that it's there. And again, letting go of the struggle and the misery and the pain of not having something. Materializing something has to go beyond the realm of thought, as thought will always be caught up in the dilemma of want and lack. The underlying or overlaying pattern needs to be cleared so you step into your innate authority and sovereignty as a creator. Now, again, these are things that most of you watching this video will be able to grasp, academically at least, the thoughts behind this of your authority, your sovereignty, your power to create. However, the beingness or the frequency of that is something that we have to fully inhabit. And that's what seems to take time when it comes to materializing a life that is truly abundant. And again, coming back to this definition or looking at what abundance is beyond material desires, one of my favorite quotes on abundance comes from the late author Jill Edwards, who wrote Living Magically. And she defined abundance as the art of living happily and easily in the world. Now, I think if you let go of all the need and the want for things or stuff or circumstances to occur in your life and come into an energy or a frequency or a feeling of ease, and start fostering a feeling of happiness, of joy, of peace, of love, and gratitude for these attributes, then you start to unfold into what true abundance is. And it becomes much easier for what you would like, or going beyond. Sometimes what we then end up receiving is beyond what we could have dreamt of. It becomes one of just allowing good or all good to come to you. It's a very different way of being that goes beyond just affirming what you want and writing down wish lists and thinking about it all the time. It's being a certain way and then just allowing yourself to receive something from that. Now, we have layers and aspects and issues around the concept of living abundantly, and most of these are unconscious, and it can take a long time to fully clear them and step into your natural birthright of abundance. But when we've let go of the need to struggle, if we're lacking at any time, the only way we can deal with that internally is to let go of the stress around it. So just coming back to that issue of the struggle, the misery, it really does come down to letting go of the stress around it, because this is what's going to push away what you want. Stress, misery just perpetuates more stress. And then it just goes in a loop of that lack and struggle reality. Okay, so whatever form of inner growth you do, I suggest forming the intention that whatever you're doing will lead to something deeper. By this, I mean whatever stage you're at in your journey towards abundance and letting go of lack and scarcity, that you approach each thing you do as a means of getting below the layer or the place you're at now with lack and scarcity. This is a key thing to remember. It's always this or something better mentality. And I've found this intention to be invaluable in my spiritual growth journey, because it means that you let go of the need to attach to a certain teacher, a certain teaching, a certain philosophy. So I've noticed an awful lot of people get very attached to one particular way of doing things or one particular teacher and look to that person as the absolute truth and authority on something. Nobody is. We all have, and I mean everybody that's on this journey, we all have different parts or aspects to the puzzle of coming into our true abundant nature and connecting back with source. So it's about being completely open to each stage of the journey and knowing that when you've completed or gone through one stage of the journey of inner growth or finding out more knowledge, that this can be a platform that opens you up to an even higher level of teaching. And I've found this invaluable on my journey. It keeps leading me to higher and higher aspects of teaching. And it's a very useful intention to have, to just go through life, whatever it is you're dealing with, not just abundance. So abundance is pretty much all of life, of just setting that intention that you're always going to find something higher, clearer, more useful, something that really gets into the root of whatever you might be struggling with. So I'm going to go through 3 programs that revolve around lack and scarcity. And there's so many more, but these are basic programs that some of them are really obvious, some are a bit more subtle. And I'll also give some tips on how to begin overcoming them. The first one, of course, is simple lack. And if we look at history throughout the ages to the present day, the reality of poverty and ill health and relationship misery, trauma and abuse, we can see the evidence of a deep sense of lack underpins most people's lives here on earth. The shocking thing, if we really think about it, we take this for granted. That's just been life on this planet, is the general view. Look at history. So much awful things have gone on, but, that's how things are. However, it's a deeply distorted and incredibly depraved way to live. It's an aberration of the truth of nature. And we do incarnate with this assumption in many ways. If you dig deep enough, it will be there. Life is shit, then we die, is the underpinning kind of motto that so many people live with. Not consciously, maybe. Some people will say that consciously, but it's there. We agree to be born into circumstances that will underscore and worsen the basic limiting distortion of lack. We're either in financial lack or a lack of proper care, of love, of nurturing, health, and so on, without really questioning why, the really big why, not the victim consciousness of why me, the narcissistic, ego-driven part that seems to think their circumstances in the world are the worst. The self-misery of that. This may sound harsh, but if we don't realize the big why and instead simply wallow in the small self-lack, lack is an issue that will never leave. I want to be really clear about what true abundance is. It is never lacking for anything in your life. It's not about life never being difficult. There will be difficulties because this is how we grow. Without that little irritation, we don't really grow. We become complacent, but we don't have to lack in the big ways that seem to underpin how most of us live our life. The difference here is that when there is a difficulty, we take complete responsibility for it. So when there's stress or difficulties in our life, we step into, again, our authority and our sovereign nature and realize the self-creation of it. Again, not in a poor me or victim way, but okay, that's happening. What can we do about it? I see difficulties as signposts towards something that I've been unconscious about. And this is an authoritative self-sovereignty way of looking at things. It's something that can lead you to something greater. So see each difficulty as an opportunity for growth. To use a popular cliche, there's no such thing as failure, only feedback. If you desire something in life and set the intention that it will happen, what transpires is that everything in you that is not that will show up to be released. Too many people take difficulty as a sign that it's not meant to be. Again, a distorting program that is seeped in from somewhere and prevents people from truly forging ahead to what it is they desire, whether it's a healing of something, a relationship that nurtures them, friendships that nurture them, smooth relationships in family, work that you enjoy, and so on. So when you set a really strong intention for something that you would wish to be in your life, everything that's not that will show up. And these are signposts as to what needs to be dealt with or released or looked at in order to carry on that journey towards what you wish. So my first tip with this first program is of allowing. Allow whatever is within you and surfacing to be felt. Allow the negative to be there, breathe through it, process it in whatever way you need to, and certainly say yes and allow the positive. Don't underestimate the power of this simple shift, that of saying yes and being grateful for every positive that arises, but also allowing what's uncomfortable to be there. I've known too many people that won't even work on the negatives for fear that that will call to them what they're frightened of. The problem is the unacknowledged fear is what's calling your fears to you. So yeah, just allow what's there to be there and surface. Now, the second program is something that Karen Cheong calls absolute scarcity. And this is an interesting one, and it's largely unconscious, but of course, many people will just say this as a saying, we can't have it all. Absolute scarcity is a program of believing that we can't have it all. There's always has to be something in life that's rubbish. And this pans out as we might have material wealth, but poor health. We may have good health, but be in a bad relationship or no relationship and unhappy about being in no relationship and so on. And we see this playing out so many times with celebrities. There are so many celebrities that have had huge fame and fortune, and you'd think they would have everything they've ever desired, but they usually have terrible relationships, or their health is poor, or they might have mental health issues, or they go through life. They might have a lot of good things, but they go through life with the belief that they're not enough, and they're tortured by this. They go through life tortured by the thought that they're a fraud or an imposter. So dig a little into this and you'll see that even seemingly people that have it all don't really. Now, abundance, as I've said, is a frequency. And the more we inhabit and embody that frequency in every particle of our being, the more life will flow. And flow is the first bit, not necessarily having all the big things we wish for, but getting into a state of flow, because that state of flow will lead you to more. And also just being in this state of flow and receiving without a sense of guilt or unworthiness. And if we do bring it into our life, say a large sum of money, without the embodiment of knowing our innate worthiness, of having abundance, we'll tend to lose it all again. This is why most lottery winners tend to lose everything they've won, which seems unbelievable if you're truly in financial lack and you see somebody winning, say, £5 million, and you think, how could you lose that? Quite easily, if somebody's not feeling worthy of it, they'll make decisions that just leave them as bad as or even worse off. And we can save affirmations and visualize, and stuff will appear, but it may not be lasting. It can be helpful, of course, if you need something quickly, to do a lot of mental stuff, mental as in saying the affirmations, visualizing, mind movies, that kind of thing. If you need something in a hurry and you can make something materialize. I've certainly done this in my life. I remember many years ago, I was seriously low on funds and worried about it. And I just set the intention that for the next 2 or 3 weeks, every single day, I would do several things that focused on financial abundance. So I did a meditation every day. I said affirmations every time a thought appeared about lack. I'd breathe into it, let it go. I'd play meditations and affirmations as I slept. And within 2 weeks, I was doing my shopping at the supermarket and I was walking past a shelf that sold lots of matches. And even though I didn't need any matches at that moment, I had enough because I lit candles and incense. I always use matches and lighters. I didn't really need matches, but I thought, okay, I'll just buy some to make sure I have some. And I just went straight for this brand that I didn't normally buy. I picked it up and it says, buy these matches and you could be the holder of the golden tipped match that wins £1,000. And I laughed and thought, how funny, put it in my shopping bag, went home. And the second candle I lit with that box of matches, because I just started using them immediately, had a golden tip. And so I looked at the box, there's a phone number. I phoned the number and I says, hi, I've just bought your matches and I've got one with a golden tip. And the woman laughed and says, you must be pinching yourself right now. And I went, yeah, I am. And so I sent it to this company, the match company, and within a week I had a check for £1,000. It's astonishing. After that, however, I went back to my usual way of just getting by in life, never in poverty, but never in abundance. So it's can work in the short term. What I would rather do is inhabit the frequency of abundance so things just flow permanently. Now, a theme that's ever present when dealing with abundance issues is worth and deserving. And this is certainly there in the can't have it all viewpoint. In Vadim Zeland's view, in reality transurfing is you are worthy, draw a line under it. He's quite stark about it. And he's right. We are worthy. There's no such thing as unworthiness or undeserving. You only have to look at some of the people out there that have a lot of money and stuff, and they're not nice people. It's a strange one, and I'm certainly no stranger to this unworthiness thing, but we see so many people who, from one way of looking at it, as I say, are a lot less worthy than us. We're generally, I'm sure most of you, everyone watching this video is a good person. So you would think you'd be more worthy and deserving of abundance than certain criminals and just, we won't mention people, but a lot of people out there that are, let's just say, not very nice people. So unworthiness is certainly a deep one in the more spiritually minded, and is, of course, one of the program distortions we're born with, that lack of self-worth. And it's another one of the mini programs I've done, mini courses I've done. I've done one specifically on worthiness because it's such a deep one. And it's not only agreed upon at birth, but we carry these programmed limitations through our ancestry from past lives, the accumulation of trauma and stress as we go through life here from many levels, and through religious distortions. And a suggestion for dealing with this one is to begin examining the concept of, why can't I have it all? Just ask that question and see what comes up. And where it shows up in your own life, then look at issues of worth. Know you're worthy of having all you desire and allow whatever's in the way of that to surface and process. You could just say, I am worthy of having it all. And notice what follows. There might be a little voice goes, no, you aren't. Examine that little voice, bring it out into the light of day and start releasing it. So we've covered the first two of these limitations that obscure the nature of abundance: lack and absolute scarcity. Lack is just simple lack, a deep program that's part of the psyche of most of humanity, fairly obvious. You know when you're lacking in some area of life. Absolute scarcity, again, is where we can't have it all. Belief is present. So the second tip is to affirm that lack as it shows up in any way in your life, that it's a false construct. It's not come from truth. This alone can begin to undo the distortions. Just looking at it as something false, it doesn't come from pure truth. So undo the distortions that affect us consciously or unconsciously. Obvious ones are things such as money is the root of all evil, rich people are bad. These are silly, outdated ways of thinking. Examine them and let them go. Abundance is your birthright. Feel the truth of this in your heart. And again, one easy way of coming into a more positive space of gratitude and peacefulness, which begins to allow flow in your life, is of coming into the heart. Do the heart meditations and you'll see a difference in your life. Now, the third program is called spiritual debt. And again, this comes from Karen Cheong, because these are subtle programs that I couldn't put a name to. And she's put names to these distortions. And spiritual debt is even more subtle, but it's all pervasive. And it's part of, I would say, the law of diminishing returns. Most people are certainly familiar with this law. And it's a program of sacrifice, as in, I must give this up in order to have that. So if we're looking at, say, creating a business that could give us a lot more in life, there's generally a feeling, oh, I'm going to have to sacrifice this or that in order to have it. It's also part of the nature of overgiving, of working too hard, of doing a huge amount and not receiving much in return. This shows up obviously in relationships, and it certainly shows up in work. So it's about giving more and more of yourself to get less and less. And it's about not being able to receive. If you're giving and giving and giving to another person, when it comes to you receiving something, something shuts down. Or that in order to have something else in life, you have to sacrifice time, energy, money, people, or be with people you don't want to be with. Or, it's like being on a hamster wheel. It also connects to the limitation of not being enough. If we overgive give all the time, we obviously have the distortion of not enoughness, because if you feel completely enough, you wouldn't overgive. And it's an endemic thing in the world. It's reinforced in religion. Even if you've not been brought up as religion, it's there in the ancestral patterns. It's there from past lives. And it's certainly there in the collective consciousness or the morphogenetic fields that make up our life. And it can also show up as the fourth aspect of the fight or flight response, fight, fight, or freeze. The fourth part of this response is the fawn reaction. And in this response, we sublimate the self. We hide all the various parts of self we fear that are unwelcome, out of a fear of displeasing others or of not being enough, a visceral sense of, if I don't appease, please, or give, I'm in danger. Over time, it becomes unconscious, a role you play in most relationships or situations in life, and you'll justify it as being kind or helpful, or you'll realize that you've got a fear of standing up for yourself in certain situations because this person might leave you or you'll lose that job. And of course, there's nothing wrong with kindness or helpfulness in and of themselves. However, if we're harming ourselves with needless helping, it is an issue. If we're intact within our within our sense of self, we know when to help and when to leave alone. It's not always helpful to help. You could hold a person's development back. If this one is familiar, there may be a desperate need to play a certain role in your work or your family. And in religion, we see this as in given to the community, but with a palpable underlying resentment, playing the part of the good girl or the upstanding man. And subconsciously, there may be a part of you crying out, when will it be my turn? So these are highly visible psychological aspects of the spiritual debt limitation. But what about the subtle aspects, however, the program that runs deep in all of us, hidden but still there? This shows that self is working in a job that is genuinely damaging in some way. In business that takes up too much time for very poor returns, or in a constant hustle for results, it will perhaps be subtle relationship imbalance. It can even be there with food and healthy living, following whatever trend is believed will bring results. Deprivation, over-exercising, spending a lot of money, but still somehow getting sick or feeling fatigued or not feeling quite right. Perhaps there's a fear that if you don't work on yourself constantly, pray or meditate daily, do all the rituals and so on, that you won't get to heaven or you won't ascend. Then there's the energetic phenomenon, and one that I've certainly been prey to in my life, and it's a energetic fault of endlessly absorbing others' energy to the detriment of my health and well-being. An underlying feeling of, if I absorb this, maybe I can help them with their pain. Not conscious, it's perhaps there unconsciously, but it's there like a background hum. The most potent antidote to this is to first be in the moment, inhabit your body and your space, and fill your being with light, realizing you are that light. It's like filling yourself with light. An easy way to do this is to first go into your heart and breathe the light of your heart energy through your field, making your field, your energy, the cells of your body, all the way to the outer reaches of your aura, making that very resilient and leaving no space for things that would drain you to get in. And this is a daily thing that those of us who are more empathic or more absorbent of others' energy have to do. Some people don't suffer from this at all. You never help somebody by taking on their pain. You don't actually take it from them. It's still there. You're just sharing it with them now. So in order to be abundant, we don't have to be perfect, but we can be whole and accept ourselves, warts and all. You can't get rid of all your so-called negative or shadow traits and then be abundant. You can be abundant now and just accept who you are. Perfection is not a spiritual trait. It's an ego need. I'll say that again. Perfection is not inherently spiritual. It's a need of the ego to be a certain way. So, tip number 3, if you have a need to be kind and helpful, and this is a real need or a calling in life, you can bring it into a higher octave by practicing the art of blessing or of loving kindness. In this way, you're genuinely sending out positive energy without taking on somebody else's energy. You could take that person that you want to help, see them in your mind and send them blessings of loving kindness. Bless them with what you think they need. Or you could take this to another level and bless people with what you need. Send it out to people. And when you send out this energy, it does come back to you. So it's a win-win. You're helping someone genuinely from an unneedy place, but from a pure space of heart-centered giving. And you're also receiving back in return. And this will begin to gently melt the need to overgive to the detriment of your well-being. And below this video, I'll give a link to another video I've done on the topic of loving kindness. Well, it's not on the topic of it, it's just a short 10-minute loving kindness meditation that I take you through that you could use as a daily practice to just gently dismantle that overgiving spiritual debt thing. Okay, so thank you for watching this video. And if you would like to go further with this into a little mini course that begins to dissolve these various programs, I would look up my Being Abundance course and I'll give you a link to it. But this course is comprised of a video that takes you through the letting go of programs of lack and scarcity. And I give some tips at the beginning, ways of questioning yourself that begin to go down under the surface and root out maybe more buried or deeply buried aspects of lack and scarcity in yourself. And the meditation part of this course takes you through going into the heart, because this is where we begin to truly receive abundance. And then from this heart space, we do a few minutes of sending out blessings of abundance into the world. So we're sending that energy out and opening ourselves up even further to receiving the energy of abundance. And from this expanded space, this frequency that is the frequency of abundance, we'll go through at least 10 minutes of powerful statements and affirmations affirming your abundance, and with space to allow anything that's not that to begin to come up in the meditation. So I hope you have a look at this course, and as I say, there's a link below it. And thank you for watching this video, and until next time, thank you. Goodbye.